all experienced it. Someone we know says or does something that offends us. And as a result, this deep hurt and this offense, we become, or at least we feel like the victim. But the way we react and the time frame of our reaction can differ depending on the nature of the situation and the kind of person we are. Some of us may prefer to avoid any confrontation altogether and just move on, like take the high road, so to speak, and just let it go. But I bet for most of us, the first thing we do is seek moral support from a close friend or a family member or a spiritual director in order to just get everything off our chest with someone who can really listen to us. And that's certainly not a bad thing. However, if we're being honest, we have the tendency to be overcritical or over-judgmental or over-dramatic and definitely one-sided. After all, we want the listener to be on our side, right? Right. Well, today's gospel from Matthew is very clear as to what we should do if someone has wronged us. Jesus tells us straight up, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. In other words, we should immediately put our grievances into spoken words by talking to the sinner directly. If we have a difference with someone, we must settle it face to face. And if I were to apply this to our modern times, I'll say, please do not send an email or text message if you can help it. Do it in person. Besides, how often do our electronic messages get misunderstood or misconstrued? It happens all the time, more often than we'd like. Well, the gospel goes on by saying, if a private or personal meeting doesn't work, then take a couple of witnesses with you. Now, doing so is not meant to gang up on the other person or be a way of proving to someone that he or she has committed an offense. But rather, it is meant to help the process of reconciliation. The goal is to rebuild that broken relationship. And if all of that still doesn't work, according to our scripture today, we are to regard anyone who has wronged us as a Gentile or a tax collector. Now, you're probably scratching your head wondering, what in the world did Jesus mean by that? Well, you might think that Jesus meant that we should think of these people as hopeless or irreclaimable. No. When he speaks of tax collectors and sinners, he always does so with sympathy and gentleness and an appreciation of their good qualities. Even Jesus has said, and I quote, "They too have a heart to be touched, and there are many of them who have become my friends." Perhaps that's Jesus reminding us that oftentimes there are two sides to a story, especially when the people telling those stories are really coming from a place of honesty and care. The key to successful relationships, after all, lies in our ability to look at things from a point of view other than our own. Now, on that note, I want to point something out that I think is too important to miss. So if you notice, this gospel is written or is meant to be read from the point of view of the injured party, the party that was wronged. I suppose we can consider them as the good guys, the ones who are commanded to do the confronting. But here's the thing. If we simply ignore the other person, the offender, we might fall into a spiritual danger. What I'm trying to say is, if we want the words of this scripture passage to be understood properly or to be seen in the right light, Well, we have to first flip the tables. By the way, that wasn't meant to be. When I said flip the tables, I flipped my page. Okay, that was not done on purpose, but I digress. We gotta turn the story around, is what I'm saying. We gotta see ourselves as not the one sinned against, but rather as the sinner, the one who has wronged another. Because when we do that, something becomes clearer. Let's face it, none of us likes the idea of other people confronting us or calling us out on something. We don't like it when someone points out things that we've done wrong. Because when that happens, right, we get angry, we get defensive, and we get uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. Sometimes we become resentful, and we refuse to see our behavior in an honest way. We start criticizing and judging the other person. We dig in our heels and refuse to ask for forgiveness. We just flat out refuse to admit that we were in the wrong. In other words, another person's criticism of us often backfires. It fails to accomplish what the person hoped to accomplish. In fact, it almost always makes the situation and relationship worse. So what are we to do? How do we avoid making a mess of the whole situation? First and foremost, we need to imagine how we would feel if what we are about to say was being said to us. Would we feel that it was okay? Would we receive that information well? And so we have a choice to make, my friends. First, we can deny or minimize the harm that we have caused, and thus cause more harm. Or we can sink into shame about what a terrible person we are, thus keeping the focus on us while continuing to miss the needs of those that we have hurt. Or we can make amends. I think you all know the answer. We have to face the truth about the harm that we've done, intentional or not, and let the other person say whatever they need to say. Just listen. And remember, our voice carries a certain power, and the words that we choose can change someone for better or worse. And so the next time you find yourself speaking unkindly to someone, pause for a moment and ask yourself, if my unkind words were spoken to me, how would it affect my life? Well, my hope is that we all choose our words wisely and treat each other kindly and gently, and know that we all deserve that. Everything we do must be done out of love. It must be done with love. Any other reason is simply not good enough. And without love, our ability to forgive or seek forgiveness diminishes greatly. Forgiveness can only come from love and lead to love. And when we have that, we can help someone get back on the path. We can help someone make a change they need to make for the better. And at the same time, we are given the grace to make changes in the way we conduct ourselves. We can live more humbly, honestly, and lovingly with others. And we become instruments of healing rather than hurt or division. The time will come when somebody will come to us and say, hey, we need to talk. So just relax and be open to just such a conversation. Because when our heart is open, everything we do becomes love.
Thank you for joining us today. Our digital ministry provides a valuable service to parishioners and visitors alike. Daily and Sunday Mass, funerals, weddings, and fireside chats, among other things, can be seen locally, throughout the country, and even the world, in real time or at one's convenience. If you would like to support this effort, please go to olphglenview.org. Click on the gold Donate button and then the Sunday Giving icon to make a contribution on our secure online giving portal. We sincerely appreciate your past and ongoing support. Thank you for helping us continue this ministry. God bless.